Support comes from STG, presenting Seattle band Rub, the recipients of STG's Live at the Neptune initiative for emerging local artists. Rub performs at the Neptune on Friday, September 5th for a concert that will be recorded live to vinyl. Tickets and vinyl information at stgpresents.org.
These days, there's so much news, it can be hard to keep up with what it all means for you, your family, and your community. The Consider This podcast from NPR features our award-winning journalism. 6 days a week, we bring you a deep dive on a news story and provide the context and analysis that helps you make sense of the news. We get behind the headlines. We get to the truth. Listen to the Consider This podcast from NPR.
Millions of people are asking tools like ChatGPT questions every day.
I asked AI to write me a workout program, and I'm going to be doing it for the next 6 weeks.
Give me a grocery list and meal plan for 2 adults, 1 toddler for 7 days with a budget of $100.
Which characters' vibes and mannerisms do I give off?
What is my sole purpose being here?
It feels like magic. Ask the AI and get your answer.
But your questions don't just fly up into the ether. They go to a real place.
AI has a backend, and it looks like massive data centers sprawling across farmland in places like central Washington.
I keep saying we look like something out of the Lorax, where you just have those tall stacks.
Data centers provide the essential infrastructure needed to run AI apps and everything else we do on the internet. And tech companies say they bring economic prosperity to communities that desperately need it.
But those benefits come at a cost. I'm Joshua McNichols.
I'm Monica Nicholsberg, and this is Booming, a podcast about the economic forces shaping our lives here in the Pacific Northwest. Today, we travel to a place where the data center boom is well underway to find out, is our AI obsession good for small-town America? That's coming up.
So, Monica, you do a lot of reporting on AI, and we often think about it as a story happening at big tech companies here in Seattle. But you took a trip to a small town east of the mountains. What made you want to go there?
Yeah, I've been covering tech layoffs for months now, and it's always just felt a little bit puzzling why these companies are cutting so many workers while at the same time making so much money. It's not typically the environment where you see mass layoffs. And then I was at this event a few weeks ago, and Microsoft President Brad Smith said something that just made it all crystal clear.
We've moved as a company from one that spent almost every dollar it earned on employing people to what is, in fact, the greatest capital and infrastructure investment in the history of global infrastructure. This year alone, we are spending more than $80 billion to build out these data centers.
And it just really got me thinking, AI feels like this thing that's happening in our computers, in our offices, in our homes, on our phones. But there's this real physical place where the AI boom is happening, and it's so out of sight for so many of us. We don't really think about the impact that this constantly growing demand for everything online and everything AI is having in rural areas. And here in Washington, we have something that's kind of unique. There's this small town where the data center boom is way ahead of most of the places where these things are going up now. It's this farming town of about 8,500 people called Quincy, and it's near the Columbia River in central Washington.
I know Quincy. I used to know a farmer there. He grew ancient grains, like einkorn and spelt and purple barley. That's very different than data centers.
Yeah, there's a sign as you enter that claims it's the nation's leading potato county.
Oh.
And in the town is Lamb Weston, which is one of the top French fry producers in the world. Microsoft's first data center in Quincy runs right up into it, and it smells like French fries. That data center was built in 2007 by Microsoft, and Yahoo also built one that year. And they were really to support what we think of now as the modern internet.
Yahoo, that sounds like the ancient internet to me. I do have an important question for you, though. Are data centers going to drive up the cost of French fries?
That is an investigation for another day.
Okay. So you went to Quincy. What did you find out there?
Well, what's interesting about Quincy is it's this window into the future at what can happen when the data center industry moves in. It used to be pretty much all farmland, but about 20 years ago, tech companies started buying those farms up and building data centers. And that brought a lot of construction and electrician jobs to the area. Then, once the data centers were built, they started paying millions in property taxes. Before the first data center went up, Quincy's property tax revenue was about $800,000. By 2012, it was $3.6 million, and it's gone up a lot since then.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of money for a small town.
Yeah. Okay, so what did you do when you got to Quincy?
Well, I got to go inside a data center, which is a little bit hard to do because they have a lot of security rules, but this company called Saby Data Centers let me go inside one of their buildings.
Very cool.
It's this huge campus owned by Saby with 5 data centers on it, and they rent those data centers to companies like Microsoft. It's massive. Think like 2 football fields for each building. In the server hall, the first thing that hits you is it's loud. There's this constant whirring of fans, and you have to raise your voice a little bit to be heard over it. And then there are these rows and rows of servers lit up in orange and blue with thick bands of red and blue wiring over the ceiling, bringing power to them. And you can hear the fans cooling them off because they put off so much heat that without constant cooling, the whole thing could melt down.
Wow, yeah. All that thinking generates a lot of heat.
It does.
So how do people in the town feel about having so many of these football field-sized server farms there?
Well, it's complicated. They don't bring as many long-term jobs as, say, the factories of the past, which used to employ thousands of people in small towns. These data centers can run with 50 to 150 employees, give or take, depending on their size. But what they do bring is a lot of tax revenue. And that's made it possible to build some really nice new public facilities, like a beautiful new hospital that just opened up in May. Their CEO, Glenda Bishop, gave me a tour.
We have a rural health clinic. We have diagnostics, including imaging and laboratory services. And we have an emergency department. We have an outpatient wound care department.
A few people told me how important having wound care is in an agricultural community like this.
Wound care. My brain just goes to gruesome scenes involving farming equipment.
Yeah, exactly. There are a lot of accidents on a farm. And in small agricultural areas, a lot of times the closest healthcare can be hours away. I actually chatted with Julie Pickering in the waiting room while her husband was in wound care. He has a partially amputated foot that hasn't healed in 4 years. Is this the best hospital that you have access to?
The best wound care that we have access to. And they've done great things with my husband's wound.
There's also a new fire station and library in town. But this was interesting. Whenever I asked people about data centers, they kept bringing up one thing over and over again.
You got to go to the high school.
Yeah, they have a beautiful high school.
You see a brand new high school, and it's a nice high school.
Oh my gosh, these people sound like they're on fire for this school. So what is so special about it?
It really is impressive. It's more like a high-end college campus with these floor-to-ceiling windows and natural wood everywhere, and all of these state-of-the-art amenities that serve about 850 students, most of whom qualify for free or reduced lunch. There's this beautiful new auditorium that helped Quincy High attract an award-winning drama teacher. And they have this shining new gym where girls were practicing volleyball. Nick Bergman, the superintendent, told me that a property tax bond paid for this $108 million remodel, and the majority of that came from the data centers.
It wouldn't have been possible without the data center presence here in our community.
The other cool thing I saw at this high school is this new vocational training program that helps kids get ready for the jobs that are actually in demand in Quincy.
Like what kind of jobs?
Well, in eastern Washington, there are a lot of wildfires. Nick showed me where kids are learning to be firefighters. It's this smoky-smelling classroom with helmets and boots and hoses lined up, and the kids learn skills there that they get to practice in the field. But the 2 big industries in town are data centers and farming. So if students want to stay in Quincy and go into one of those industries, they can take a data center technician track at the high school.
They can earn a certificate and go working directly in the data centers out of the high school.
Or there's an agriculture track where they raise pigs and goats in the 4-H barn.
I gotta confess, I'd probably go with the pigs and goats.
Yeah, it would be nice to work outside. The data center program is pretty new and they're still refining it, so it's not clear yet how many of these kids will actually go on to work in the field.
Okay, it sounds like Quincy is like the richest little farming town in America. So what's the downside?
Yeah, it does kind of feel like that. There are two things, and both of them come down to sustainability in different ways. One, there's a concern that the data centers going up are going to use up all of the resources in this area. And then another fear is that the job gains from putting these data centers in town are temporary. So let's focus on the resources part first. Data centers demand a ton of energy round the clock, and most of them use water for cooling. Like I said earlier, they get really hot, like when your laptop is working too hard, but times a lot. It hasn't become a crisis in Quincy because the city has a lot of power and water from the Columbia River. Abundant power is what drew these data centers to the area to begin with. But that drain on power has also caused some people to fear that the data centers are going to drive up electricity costs. And I did hear from one resident who said her electricity bill has doubled since the first data center went up 18 years ago. But the local utility says rates have just gone up from inflation, not data centers, so it's hard to know for sure. There has been some reporting that suggests that in other places, the data center boom has caused electricity bills to go up.
Yeah, I heard a little of that from the director of Seattle City Light. We're working on a whole episode about electricity costs where we'll get into some of those questions. But back to Quincy, how big a strain on power are the data centers?
Well, in Grant County, where Quincy is located, they've reached the limit of what they can supply in terms of power and water to businesses in the area. That's what the city manager told me. They're maxed out. But tech companies want to keep building new data centers there. I talked to Andy Wendell from the Grant County Public Utility, and he said there are 79 pending permit applications in their queue, and most of those are for data center projects.
The demand for power in our queue is about equivalent to the entire demand for the city of Seattle.
Wow. Okay, so these data centers that are being planned right now to be built, when you add them all up, they're going to consume more electricity than the city of Seattle?
Well, when I followed up with Andy, he actually said it's more like double the city of Seattle.
Wow.
All of that demand means that at peak usage times, this utility has to buy extra power on the open market from a variety of sources, including gas, coal, fossil fuels. And that could undermine Washington's progress toward weaning off of carbon sources of power. That's a concern that I heard from Patty Martin. She's the former mayor of Quincy, and she's an environmental activist.
I'm concerned that as that electrical energy need expands, that there is no type of electrical production that would be off the table.
Patty says that these taxes have bought a lot of shiny new things, but that her neighbors aren't thinking enough about the environmental consequences.
It's great to look at the economic benefits. That's a snapshot in time. That's something you benefit from right now. The question is, what's the long-term effect?
It's so interesting that the former mayor is now kind of working against this big economic boom that came to her town.
Yeah, and this is something that she's been doing for a long time, even before the data centers moved in. She's kind of like an Erin Brockovich type figure.
Huh.
We should note that in the counties surrounding Quincy, there's still some room to grow, and a lot of data centers are being built there. But in Grant County, where Quincy is, they're facing some tough choices.
Okay, so it sounds like, as this new industry grows, there's this risk that we're going to fall back on old sources of energy, like fossil fuels, and we've been trying to move away from those for a long time.
Yeah, and that is something that companies like Microsoft are very aware of, and they're investing a lot of money in renewable technologies, particularly fusion, which seems like the best candidate to really meet this demand. But not every company has the same sustainability goals as Microsoft. Not every state has the same environmental regulations as Washington. And there's so much energy going into building data centers across the country that, at least right now, it seems like the only way to do it is by relying on fossil fuels to some degree.
Okay, so that's one concern. But you also mentioned another concern that people have, that jobs would go away. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, so in Quincy, this whole little economy has sprung up because of the influx of construction workers to the area, building data centers. And it's just not clear how long that will last or what will happen if they stop building them and the construction workers leave town. It's kind of like a gold rush right now. They've been building data centers nonstop for almost 20 years. I met one of these workers who came to town for the data center building boom. Pat Gallatin is an electrician, and I met him at the weekly Brotherhood Night for the Electricians Union, which is hosted by this pizza restaurant called Monkey and Around Pizza in Quincy.
The first data center I worked on here was in 2006 or 5, and it was a sleepy little farming community. And since then, I bet you there's 20 data centers or better in the area. So that's put thousands of construction workers to work pretty much every year since 2005.
The pizza place that held this event was packed with electricians like Pat, who chased the data center boom to Quincy. And if you know your history, you'll remember that the real economic benefits from a gold rush are the pick and shovel businesses like the pizza place that crop up in mining towns to sell to the prospectors.
Yeah, I know that's what built Seattle. You know, it was making money off the miners headed to Alaska. And that kind of thing happened all across the western United States. I know.
Yeah, exactly. And the pizza restaurant is one of those pick and shovel businesses. I met the owner, Cheryl Smith, and she said she created this place specifically for all of the traveling construction workers. Pretty much the first thing that Cheryl said to me when I walked in the door was she's nervous because the governor plans to review the environmental impacts of data centers. She's worried that tech companies will choose to build them in other places and that the building will slow down in Quincy and the area around it.
Yeah, it's a little scary. I'm not from here either, so I don't have like the community support of being from here. My connections are the construction workers. So that's it's really scary.
As long as they keep building data centers, Cheryl is pretty confident she'll have enough customers. But if it stops, the data centers themselves might not be able to support her business. And what I mean by that is it takes a lot more people to build data centers than to keep them up and running. So if the building stops, those construction jobs will leave and they might not be replaced. It's the difference between, say, like hundreds of data center jobs actually working there long term versus thousands of construction jobs in a small town.
Wow, that's a big difference. Okay, so what do you think? Is this boom sustainable in these small towns? I mean, you said there are tons of applications for new data center projects, so it doesn't sound like it's slowing down. And most of us are using more and more AI every day.
Yeah, the demand is there. And it's not just AI. Everything that we do online, getting our medical records, saving photos, sending emails, it all requires a data center. But that's running into very real resource constraints. I think that Quincy is kind of becoming a test of this question of whether the economic benefits of the AI data center boom can be sustained in small towns, and if that's going to increase our dependence on fossil fuels at the end of the day. We talk a lot about how the AI boom is going to create winners and losers, right? But we don't always think about that in terms of the rural communities where the infrastructure for this is being built. And they're the ones who are going to have to decide if the disruption that data centers cause is worth the real economic benefits that they bring.
And they might not all agree because you got the pizza owner on one side and you got the former mayor on the other side, and they're fighting against each other.
Well, I don't know if they would put it that way, but there's tension for sure.
Yeah. So, okay, where do you think this is all heading?
Well, it feels like the government, investors, everyone with money is just saying build, build, build when it comes to data centers, no matter what. So I'm going to be watching how this AI boom is going to run up against resource constraints in Washington state, or if the next generation of data centers is just going to go up in other states with fewer hurdles. And then more broadly, I think it's on all of us who are using AI to consider if we can keep charging ahead at this speed while also trying to decarbonize our grid.
Well, thank you for bringing us this story, and thanks for the future reporting you're going to do on this to take this further.
Happy to.
Coming up next, the end game.
Hey, I'm Ton Vin, host of Seattle Eats, a food podcast from the Seattle Times and KUOW. What comes to mind when you think of instant ramen? Many people just see a cheap snack, but Chef Josh Ratza sees an opportunity. On the latest episode of Seattle Eats, Josh shows us how to elevate instant ramen into a delicacy without breaking the bank. Listen to Seattle Eats on the KUOW app or wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, we're back, and it's time for the end game, and our producer Lucy Suchek is here.
I am here, and I'm excited about this one. So I wanted to figure out how much energy usage is actually happening when we talk about AI and when we use AI. It's really hard to quantify. There's all these like megawatt blah, blah, blah numbers. And so I wanted to figure out things that we do on a day-to-day basis and how it compares to every time we ask ChatGPT a question.
I'm really happy about this because every time I use ChatGPT for something, my daughter gets really upset because she's like, do you know how much energy that uses? And I say, no, I don't actually.
Are you using it for things that justify the energy use?
Well, I'm using it in place of a lot of internet search queries these days, like just because it gives you so much more context around the answer than Google search results do.
Also, it's kind of hard to avoid using AI on Google search now because they put the AI preview at the top.
That's right. Yeah.
For a while, I would scroll down and refuse to look at it. And now I look at it. It's just it's so easy.
They're getting their claws in you.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a true or false game. And I've got 2 questions for you.
Okay. We need to get some buzzers, like right or wrong.
I know we really do.
That would annoy the listeners, though, wouldn't it?
I don't know. Listeners, let us know. booming@kuow.org.
Okay, and this is a huge caveat. These are all averages. It's very hard to track, and there's lots of factors when it comes to calculating these numbers. So approximate, everyone.
Okay.
All right, let's play. True or false? On average, in a single day, ChatGPT consumes enough electricity to charge 7 million smartphones.
Wow. Okay, well, this is ChatGPT like all over the globe, so I'm going to say true.
I think it's more. I'm going to say false because I think it could charge more smartphones.
What number do you think it could charge?
Well, I wasn't inviting a follow-up question. 20 million.
Okay, Monica's correct. It's false, but it's 8 million. So
okay.
It's not
all right.
20.
Okay.
But yeah, it's 8 million. And that's also equivalent to running the Empire State Building for 540 days.
Wow.
All right, number 2. True or false? In 1 month, ChatGPT uses the same amount of electricity it takes to power all of the Times Square billboards for 20 years.
Well, now I have to translate Empire State Buildings for 1 day into Times Square billboards.
Of course you do.
I just feel that it's true with no explanation.
Okay.
I think definitely yes, and probably more.
It's true. Yes, ChatGPT uses the same amount of electricity it takes to power all of the Times Square billboards for 20 years.
Wow.
In 1 month. And that is the same as charging 332,000 electric cars.
Wow.
So.
That's interesting because one thing that came up a lot in my reporting was, yes, the data centers are driving this real change where we're starting to increase our electricity needs for the first time in a long time, but also we're electrifying everything, cars, home appliances, in this effort to get off of fossil fuels, everything is moving to electrical demand. And so it's just one part of this bigger picture of where we're at in terms of energy.
Yeah, that was a hard one. There's so much math involved, so that's why I only have 2 examples.
Well, I love it. Short and sweet.
Yeah.
But I do have a cautionary tale. I tried using ChatGPT for this. It's ironic, I know. However, it took me more time to debunk ChatGPT's answers than it did actually finding good information because it kept giving me answers that were exaggerated a little bit to make the game more fun. And I had to ask it to double check its work and fact check it and cite its sources. And it would also pretend data was recent or not tell me what year data was from, acting as though it was recent data when it was actually data from 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So cautionary tale.
Yeah.
I think that that's happening a lot. I'm actually chatting next week with a software engineer who says that he thinks he's a freelancer and he says he thinks he's being hired over and over again to clean up AI slop, but he can't tell for sure.
It's tricky.
It's tricky. Apparently, GPT-5 is better. I haven't been able to try it yet, but I also find that a lot of times I'll go to ChatGPT for something and then it's just not quite up to the job.
Yeah.
Yeah, I faced that with the earthquakes episode. There's been changing scientific research over the years, and some of those outdated studies are no longer valid, and it's pulling them up like they were published yesterday.
Yeah.
So, but I do have one question for you, Lucy, because this is what I need to satisfy to address my daughter's concern. And that is, how much energy does it take when I run a simple query on ChatGPT?
It's 0.3 kilowatt hours, which is equivalent to running a 10-watt light bulb for a couple minutes.
That's less than I thought.
Yeah, but when you add it up, like, think about when you ask ChatGPT a question and then inevitably you have to ask it like 15 follow-up questions because it doesn't deliver what you want on the first try. Like, it really adds up.
It also depends on the question. Even if it seems simple to you, it may require more compute than it needs or than you think.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, thanks for bringing us the game, Lucy.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, thanks. That's it for Booming. Thanks for listening.
If you've got a story idea or question about the local economy, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at booming@kuow.org.
And thanks to people who donate to the show. You make all this possible. If you want to donate, go to kuow.org/booming. Thanks.
Our producers are Lucy Suchek and Alec Cowan. Our editor is Carol Smith. I'm Monica Nicholsberg.
I'm Joshua McNichols.
And we'll see you next time.